If you keep being nice to a team member who is not meeting your expectations, you might actually be creating a bigger problem. And this happens a lot. Of course, as a person, you don't want to make other people feel bad about themselves, and you don't want to sound rude, or you don't want them to feel like you're attacking them. So instead of saying the real issue clearly, you now soften it. You say things like, it's okay, just make sure it doesn't happen again, or just be more careful next time. But deep inside you, you know you are already frustrated because this is not the first time that this happened, right? So that's why you do feel some kind of resentment. Because maybe the work is late again, or maybe the update was missing again, or maybe you needed to follow up with them again. And that's really frustrating. And I understand that, I get that. Because you don't want to create tension within the team. So you try to just adjust your expectations about things, and you remind them again and you give them another chance. But how many more chances do you still need to give your team member, right? Because honestly, that usually makes it worse. Because now you are carrying frustration silently, and the team member may not even realize how serious the issue is. So by the time you finally say something, it comes out heavier than it needed to. That is why I always say being nice is good, but being unclear is not. And let me just repeat that, okay? Being nice is good, but being unclear is not. So hi, I'm Anarica Aboro, the founder of TAP OBM and TAP Virtual Solutions. At TAP OBM, we work with coaches, consultants, and online business owners who already have clients, a team, revenue, and a lot of moving parts. So usually they come to us when the business is already growing, but the operation feels messy and almost everything still depends on the CEO or the founder. That is usually the point where the business does not need more people. It needs more operational or stronger operational leadership. And in this video, I want to talk to you and teach you how to speak to a team member who is not meeting expectations without making it personal, without avoiding the issue or waiting until you are already mad. And I'm going to walk you through what I call the C.L.E.A.R accountability framework. C.L.E.A.R, C.L.E.A.R stands for C, call out the specific issue. L, link it to the impact. E, explore what is getting in the way. A, agree on the next standard. And R, review the follow through. It's a simple framework, but it helps you keep the conversation clear, fair, and focused on the work and not the person's character. Because this conversation does not have to be dramatic, but it does need to be clear. So let's start with the first part of the C.L.E.A.R accountability framework. C, call out the specific issue. This means you talk about what happened, not who they are as a person. Let me repeat that. You need to talk about what happened. You talk about the facts and not who they are as a person. This is where a lot of leaders mess up. And I get it, because when you have already reminded someone several times and you have already fixed their work and you have already adjusted around them, it is very easy to say something like, you're unreliable, or you're like, you might say, you're just not taking this seriously. Or worse is like, you're careless. Or actually, there are still more worse way to say it, right? But the moment you say it that way, most people will defend themselves. And because now it becomes, or it feels personal. Now the conversation is no longer about the missed deadline or the mistake. It becomes about whether they are careless, unreliable, or not committed. It now becomes personal. And that is not the point. The point is the actual behavior that needs to change. So instead of saying you're unreliable, say something like, the last 3 clients' reports were submitted late, and 2 of them had errors that I needed to correct. This way, it's much cleaner, right? It is specific, it is factual, and also it is not attacking their character. So instead of saying you don't communicate properly, you can say something like, on Monday and Wednesday, I had to follow up with you twice before I got an update on the project. Again, that way it's specific. Or instead of saying you are not taking ownership, you can say something like, When the deadline was missed, I was not informed until the client asked for an update. So these are like, the way of saying it in this way, because this is the actual issue. This is what needs to be discussed. Because when you are specific, the conversation becomes easier to handle. You are not fighting about personality. You are talking about something that happened and what needs to change. So again, when we talk about the first thing in this framework, C is to call out the specific issue. So just base everything from facts or say things that are very specific instead of you talking about them specifically. Okay, the second part of the C.L.E.A.R accountability framework is L. Link it to the impact. This means you explain why the issue matters, because sometimes they know the problem, or they know that they made a mistake. They know that they submitted a report late. They know that they forgot to send you an update. But the problem sometimes is they don't understand what that creates for the business or what's the effect of that mistake to the business. So you need to say it this way. For example, when reports go out late, the client starts to lose confidence in our delivery. Or you can say something like, when there are errors, someone else has to stop what they're doing and try to fix it. And usually that's you as a founder, right? Or you can say something like, when I don't get an update, I cannot manage the client properly or make decisions on time. So this part is important because you are showing them the bigger picture. You're not just saying, oh, you missed another deadline. And you are saying, this is what happens when the deadline is missed. Again, you're giving them a bigger picture. So when you say, this is what happens when the deadline is missed, like you list them down. The client gets worried, the team gets delayed, someone else has to jump in. Or maybe you can say something like, when you are late, the CEO or the client has to check things that should have already been handled. So a lot of business owners assume their team already understands this, but honestly, not everyone sees the bigger picture or the full picture. If someone is only responsible for one part of the process, they may not see how their delay affects everyone else. There are tasks that are dependent on other tasks, right? So giving them the big picture makes them understand and appreciate what really entails or what's the effect of that mistake. If you're not telling them the bigger picture, they may not see how one mistake affects the client experience. They may not see how poor communication puts you back in the middle of everything. So explaining the impact is not over-explaining. And let me just repeat that. And take notes. Let me just repeat that. Explaining the impact is not over-explaining. It's part of leadership. You are helping them understand why the standard matters. So the third part of the C.L.E.A.R accountability framework is E, which is explore what is getting in the way. This means you ask what is going on before you jump to conclusions. And this is important because not every performance issue means the person does not care. Sometimes the person is the problem, but sometimes the process is also the problem. Maybe the instructions were not very clear, right? Maybe this person's workload is just too much. Maybe the deadline was unrealistic and maybe they need more training. So after you explain the issue and the impact, ask them, so I want to understand what is getting in the way. And then you should ask simple questions like, is the process unclear? Is the workload too much right now? Or do you need help? Do you need training on something? Do you need me to explain the instructions more clearly? You can ask, is there something slowing you down? So this matters because you do not want to assume too fast. For example, if someone is always late, yes, it could be like performance issue, right? But it could also be that their work depends on 3 other people who are also late. Maybe their task is dependent on other tasks, right? So there are a lot of reasons why things are happening. So if someone keeps making mistakes, yes, it could be carelessness. I cannot take that away, but it could also be that there is no quality check before things go out. Like if someone is not giving updates, Yes, it could be poor communication, but it could also be that nobody clearly told them when, where, and how updates should be given. That is why I like asking first before jumping into conclusions, because if it's the people issue, address the people issue. But if it's a system issue, fix the system. And honestly, a lot of the time, it is both. The person needs to take more ownership and the process needs to be clearer. The fourth part of the C.L.E.A.R accountability framework is A, agree on the next standard. This means you agree on what happens next. This is where you need to be very specific. Do not end the conversation with, just do better next time, or just try not to make that same mistake again. Because what does that even mean, right? Do better how? By when? Like, what exactly needs to change? And what does good work look like? You have to say it clearly. For example, moving forward, the report needs to be submitted every Thursday by 3 p.m. And before sending it, I need you to complete the quality check. And once it is done, please update ClickUp tasks so I know it's ready for review. That is clear. You say step 1, 2, 3, 4. They know the deadline, they know the standard, they know what action to take. Then ask, can you commit to that? That question matters. Let me repeat that. That's absolutely important. After saying it very clear, or after telling them what exact actions to take, you need to ask, can you commit to that? Because now they're not just listening to the instructions. Now they're agreeing to the expectations. And if they cannot commit to it, you need to know that right away. Maybe the deadline is not realistic. If you need them to research about something and they need to submit that within 2 hours, that is just not realistic, right? Maybe they need help. Maybe they're just overloaded. Maybe they're not the right person for that role. But it is better to find that out during the conversation than wait for another and get frustrated again. A lot of my clients, a lot of CEOs and business owners say, but I already told them. And yes, maybe you did. But the question is, did they really understand? Did they even agree with it? Was the standard clear? Was the deadline clear? Was the next step clear? Because that is a big part of leading people. You cannot just hope people understand what you mean. It's always a two-way communication. You have to make it clear enough so there is no guessing. And the fifth part of the C.L.E.A.R accountability framework is review the follow-through. This means you set a follow-up. So what do I mean by that? Do not have the conversation once and then just hope everything changes. Because yeah, a lot of times that doesn't happen at all. So follow through. Say something like, let us review this again in 2 weeks. Or you can say something like, I will check the next 2 reports and then we will talk again after that. You can say something like, for the next 2 weeks, I want to see updates posted every Thursday by 3 p.m. So that follow-up is important because now it shows that this is not just a random complaint. This is something being watched. And it also gives the person a fair chance to improve, because accountability is not just about catching someone doing something wrong. It is also about giving them a clear chance to correct it. The clearer the expectation, the fairer the accountability. Remember that. So again, clear means call out the specific issue, link it to the impact, explore what is getting in the way, agree on the next standard, and then review the follow-through. That is the framework. It's simple, but to be honest with you, a lot of people don't follow it or can't even follow it. Now, I want to say this because I think a lot of CEOs and business owners need to hear it. And avoiding the conversation does not make you kind. Sometimes it just makes the whole thing messier. And because while you're trying not to hurt someone's feelings, the business is paying for it. The client experience is affected. The team gets delayed and your energy gets drained. And slowly you start losing trust in that person. And then one day you're not just annoyed about one missed deadline. You are annoyed about the whole pattern. You are annoyed about the person itself. So my advice is to have the conversation early. You can be respectful and direct at the same time. You can be kind and clear at the same time. And I remember, let me just share this very quickly. I attended a leadership training back then. I think that was in 2018 or 2017. And it's a leadership program of Brené Brown. And it says there, I will never forget that, because I really resonated with that when they said, being clear is kind, right? You can care about the person and still hold that standard. So those things can exist together, right? Being clear and being kind, being respectful and direct at the same time, right? Those things, two things can exist together. And honestly, good team members usually appreciate clarity. They may not love the feedback in the moment. Of course, nobody loves being corrected, right? But clear feedback gives people a chance to be better. Silence does not. Hints do not. Passive frustration does not. And fixing their work behind the scenes does not. Only clear communication does. So if you use the clear accountability framework, the conversation becomes much easier to handle. You're not attacking the person. You are avoiding and correcting the real issue. You're not waiting until you explode. You are simply saying, okay, here's what happened, here's why it matters, and help me understand what is getting in the way. And here's what needs to change, and let's review it again together. No silent treatment, no fixing the work quietly while pretending everything is fine, and no waiting until you are already upset and then wondering why the conversation feels heavy. And if you're a CEO, business owner, or team leader watching this, look at it from both sides. Look at the person, but also look at the system around the person. Because sometimes the issue is really performance, but sometimes the role isn't clear. The deadline was not properly set. There is no quality check. There's no clear place for updates, or everyone is just working based on assumptions. That is where a lot of business owners get stuck. They think they have a people problem, but sometimes it's an operations problem showing up through people. So before you label someone as unreliable, ask yourself, did I set the expectations clearly? Did they know what done actually looks like? Did they know when and where to give updates? Did I give them the right process? Did I follow up early enough? That does not remove accountability from the team member. It just makes you a better leader. Because strong leadership holds people accountable, but it also builds the structure that helps people do the work properly. And this is the kind of thing I talk about here. Team accountability, operational leadership, systems that people actually use, and how to build a business that does not depend on one person remembering, reminding, checking, and catching everything. So if this video was helpful, subscribe to my channel. And if your business is growing, but the backend or your operation still feels too dependent on you, you can check the links below to learn more about TAP OBM and how we work with coaches, consultants, and online business owners. But for now, start with one conversation you have been avoiding. Keep it clear, keep it fair. All right, so see you on the next video.